Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's January 12th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And in the big picture, this is a range day, and I got at least a couple of comments from people that it was a tough day to trade, and it was. Um, when you get a huge sell-off like this, and then suddenly it races the other direction, then it's racing. I mean, we're constantly moving hard in one direction or the other, and there's no consistent direction. The turns are not consistent. There are a couple of ranges in here. This was somewhat of a range, but the blue channel looked like it was going to win out, which it did temporarily, only to see it fail. And then we had the strong trend down, which there's actually a couple of different ways to look at this. There's the yellow spike down, and then we kind of folded over into this bluer channel and then had the break and a couple of legs down before we reversed. Then you got a trend working up here. I didn't color this one. Let's give it a little color here. We'll just give that one a gray color. And you can see we actually overshot there, had a correction, moved to a new high. Then we're working, but mostly we're just working sideways across here, and there's just no real sense of direction. There's no rhythm that you can get in and kind of be prepared, because just about the time you think it's time to enter, then it reverses. So if you didn't see these strong resistance and support areas, you might have struggled with this day. So it just wasn't a real easy day to trade, and it's been this way for a week or so now. Let me move over here a little more so you can see this. But I'm going to go through the trades real quickly and show you what the ones I see that are reasonable to take, in my opinion. And there really wasn't much past noontime here. I've got a green one in here, but this was just really almost impossible to trade. If you bought the support or sold the resistance up here in the afternoon, you probably did okay. But none of them are real obvious, and none of them are real strong setups, really. So there was a triple. You might have looked at this as a triple test here. I didn't mark that one, but it's a possibility. I'll at least make it green. It's just so much congestion there that it makes it, I mean, you don't see rejection there, and that's what you want to see. And you don't see it, although you do get a triple test and it bounces at least enough to get a scalp out of it. And that's probably the kind of trade you were looking at. So, you didn't get your first trade till almost 9 o'clock here that I saw that was really worth taking. So, but let's back out or zoom in here, and we'll talk about the trade. 7 o'clock came right in here, and notice this blue. I marked this out because there was some big news items here that came out. That's what made this kind of shoot up suddenly here. So I don't think you really needed to trade this. You need to kind of let it settle down. And by the time it really settled down and gave you a setup, prices are way over here. And you can see we had this failed break higher. And so you had to assume that, hey, maybe if you drew this trend off the top and drug it down, you had to say, hey, maybe there's a trend line down here. We'll just have to see when we get there. But it's really looking like sideways until we bounced here, which is close to 9 o'clock. It really is almost 9 o'clock before we confirm this trend line. And you can clearly see the two legs down, very similar to yesterday when we had the two-legged correction and then went higher from there. I believe that was yesterday. But you clearly were working down, and you get a first entry, second entry, and that's such a big bearish bar. I like going short there. We turned down there multiple times, had the failed breakout here, went a little bit lower. So odds are you can probably get a scalp back to the other side, and maybe there's a trend line down here. We'll have to see. And of course it does. It runs straight down there. And then it gives you a higher low. I didn't mark this when I meant to. I was trying to decide if I wanted to mark it blue or green, and I forgot to come back and put something there. But I'd say that's at least green. It's a second entry. It does confirm the trend line. There's plenty of room back here, and you would expect this breakout to fail, even if only temporary. But this really looks like it confirms this trend line right here to me. And of course we come back to it again here and get another second entry, and notice how prices close inside there. And that turns out to be a pretty nice move. I want to talk about this trade here it's a little convoluted, and I did mark it green, but it's a little convoluted. So let me explain this trade to you. But notice that you do have a new swing low right here. It's lower than this one, and prices move up and they turn down, and then they turn back up before turning down again. Normally you'd like to see two distinct moves lower there, but that's still a failed second entry short, and it's actually a couple of legs back here to the EMA, and you could really look at that as a second entry long. It does make a little higher high here, but it still looks like a couple of legs back. It's a little congested too, but my guess is we're going to go higher here, especially coming twice off that EMA, and there's plenty of room back to the high of the range, even if we're going to turn back down. So I like that one. I believe you got to stick to a green there. It's a little aggressive, but if you understand what's going on and you see that, maybe you take that trade. We do pull back here, no setup really, and then we're just working lower. There is a failure to the high side here, but the trend is up. We did get the trend line confirmed, and I just think it's dangerous going short right into that EMA, especially there is enough room to scalp out before you get back to the previous resistance that may act as support here, but I still think you're better off just to wait. And I don't think you can go long here yet either, even though it bounces. And of course, it runs up, and we're trending higher here. So that's the reason I don't like a short here, even though there's a very good signal bar. It's right into the EMA too, and you don't want to go short right there on just a lower high, especially with the trend being up. We do pull back here, and it looks like we're going to go higher, and prices can't break higher, and they come down here, and they end up going lower. And so what looks like is going to be a sure two-tiered trend turns into a big sell-off here. So I was a little surprised. I wasn't completely surprised that we corrected temporarily, because we opened up here, and so there is a gap, because this is the high from yesterday. So there was a gap between here and here, and a lot of times prices will attempt to test the close from the previous day too if they go to fill a gap. So no surprise really that we traded down. I was a little surprised we went all the way and tested the lows. At that point, this is a fairly strong sell-off, so I really thought we would at least test the highs first, but it didn't happen. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Somebody, people always ask me about the rules, and the rules don't tell you when to take a trade. The rules just tell you what to expect. And on this, when you get a break of a channel like this, you expect a retest of the high. And we just didn't get it. Prices tried to go higher, but they couldn't. They just continued to trade lower. So, and in the end, it wasn't a trend. There's no doubt this trend line or this two-tiered channel is valid, but it just plays out. It can't establish itself and keep going, and it plays out, and it turns out to be a range day. So, the rules tell you what to expect, but they don't tell you how to trade it. So make sure you understand that. We're chart readers. So you have to read the chart, and if you don't get a setup, don't take it. And we never really get along before we're going strictly really fast to the downside here. So I'm sorry, I'm still having to pause here occasionally and clear my throat. When I start talking, I really struggle here. I'm still not 100%, although I'm getting better daily. So, but we run on down. No setups that I see coming down here that you really can take a chance at. There is a move higher here. Let me zoom in a little closer. There's actually a two legs up right here. Notice that you actually get a first entry there. So this is technically, even by the counts, a second entry right off that flatter, and it does confirm the trend channel on this flatter cayenne colored trend. But even if you didn't look at it like that, there's a hidden second entry there. And that's a fairly bearish bar with not too, it's not very big. It's only 5 ticks, very low risk. I think that's a great setup, to be honest with you. If you're not quite sure there, you got a lower high right here that breaks higher. I don't think I would go short way down here. You really had to play this as an engulfing bar, and that's always a little riskier. But again, we just confirmed that trend line, and you got another big bearish bar here. So um, again, in order to go short down here at the low, you got to have room to get out, and I'm not sure that you do there. Let's see how many ticks are in there, just out of curiosity. Well, there's 2 points there, so you might have taken that trade going short there. I probably would have, honestly, I'd probably trade that on the engulfing or skip it, or either let it break lower here and drop a limit order and see if you could get just a little better entry on it, which you probably could have got a couple of ticks better there and still give you a little extra room just to be safe. And you see it does, it bounces here. You got enough to get your scalp, but it still bounces here. And there is a triple test here, but that's just too congested. I'm not going to risk an entry there. But as you can see, you get a little double bottom here, so a new low, and then you get a first entry and you get a second entry up here right at where we've tested that price level 3 times now. You made the high here, you came back and tested it, and you come back and tested a second time. There is a channel working up here, and you get a break and a new high as well. So I like that trade. There's another lower high here again, but again, you got to go short way down here in the lows, and we've been bouncing there, and it's just a little bit risky, and I think you're better off to skip it. We do drop on down, and you get a first entry, second entry. That's the first break of this yellow channel working lower here. So it looks like we're going to, although we do have a break of the blue and a new low now, I would still expect a possible retest of this, and with that being a second entry right at the key entry point and a fairly decent signal bar that's not too large, 9 ticks, that's a good place to enter. And it drops on down, makes another new low, and then we reverse out of there. And of course, you've got the overnight lows down here, so that would have been another nice target to the downside if we're going lower, and of course that's where it bounces, and then we're going higher again. There was one more second entry here. I marked this one green. Notice the new low, and you get a first entry and then a second entry, and look how bearish that bar is. It's a little bit sideways, but I don't really see that as congestion. There's not until this bar actually formed, and you would have been entering on the break below that. There's enough room to scalp out there, even on what you see, although I thought we'd probably at least try to test the lows again. It just turns out to fail right there and create that trend line and turn up. So, but it's still good for the scalp, and that's just such a bearish bar on a second entry in a downtrend that it's hard to ignore that trade. But again, I marked it green for a reason, and there is a failure here, but I don't see it being good enough to go long either, even though it turns out to be a really nice reversal. So I think you wanted to see this close above, give you a better setup than that. It turns out to be a pretty nice move. Then, of course, you get a failed break higher here. There is a lower high here. I didn't mark this one because of the trend line working up. I just think it's too risky to go short into that trend line. You can see it did bounce. And then you get another chance to go short right here. But this makes a higher high than that one. So even though you could look at that as a second entry short, we still got the trend line working up. We do have an overshoot here too, so it's something to think about. So when it makes a lower low and then comes up and makes a lower high and a triple test across there, I like going short finally. And you can see that you get a much bigger move now. So the smarter traders are waiting on that double test of this high. And so I've had some people think that this is a double test. You make the high, then you come back. That's not your double test. This sets the high, and then this tests it once, and this is a double test. So that would just, you might look at that as a double top, but that is not a double test. So make sure you understand what a double test is, because I had somebody ask me that today, or yesterday, I think. Of course, we drop down, we bounce again, and we're going higher again. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason to what this market's doing. There is a trend channel working up through here again, and you get a close outside and a move to a new high. And there's a second entry long right there. Notice the new high, first entry, second entry. But this is your signal bar. It's too bearish, too congested. Yeah, it makes a nice move up, but it's not worth risking. And then of course you get a lower high right here coming back, and but it's right into the EMA. Again, it's congestion. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars stacked up there. This one has no body. Very risky. Even though it drops on down, it's just not worth taking. Same thing here. It's too sideways, too congested. Even though you got a little bit of a channel working down, this one's real tempting, but you got to go short out of all that congestion, and what'll happen is it'll probably fail, which it does, and we just keep chopping on before we finally drop lower. And I just don't see any opportunities to go short. There is a second entry short right here, um, but again, it looks congested, not a very good signal bar. It's right into this support area. That pink channel has been working across there, and you can see it would have been good for a scalp, but it fails instantly and reverses. And once again, you don't really get a setup to go long. But you get a little repeat here. Notice it's similar to this one right here. Notice you're working up and you get the overshoot, and then you get a lower eye. I like that when you do have room to get out on this one. And we've been turning up and down on this channel, so I like going short. I did mark it green. Again, it looks a little congested. It's fairly close to the EMA. So there's some concerns with it. So again, I just marked it green. And of course, we drop down here to the lows. You make a low, you test it once, you test it twice. So you get a double test here, and you get a nice signal bar. But again, it's congested. But we've bounced down here multiple times, so hopefully you can at least get a scalp out of it. And if you want to take a risk, it's one you might take. And I marked it green just for the triple test. We do come back and make a second entry. Same thing here. You could probably argue for that one to be green. And like usual, there's other trades in here that, depending on how you were reading this thing, you might have taken a chance on them and says, hey, that ought at least, it may be a little aggressive, but you might consider calling it a green or whatever. And there might even be a red or blue one in there that you like, that you saw slightly different than me. So, if I didn't mark it, if you're not sure, you can always post it in the forum or send me an email, and when I get a chance, I'll try to answer it. So, but yeah, this is some hard trading. There's just no rhyme. There's no rhythm to this market. It's just it can turn on a dime and be moving strongly. I mean, look how strong it looks like we're going lower here, and then suddenly we're going just as strong to the upside. And then we're back down again, then back up, then back down. And this is just really hard trading. And so if you're struggling, don't beat yourself up too bad, because this is hard trading even for a good chart reader, because you can't get any real rhythm to it. So it's just hard to follow. But anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll